Hey, it's Tyler. Today's video is on the power of symmetry as it relates to the diminished scale, and specifically this grip concept. Right off the bat, the name grip, or the grip concept, comes from something that I was exposed to at the University of Miami when I was working on my doctorate back in 2002, and my first exposure to it was through the master teacher, Whit Sidener. He was the head of the jazz program for many decades at the University of Miami, since retired. But as part of my studies, I would sit in and watch him teach undergraduate classes. And that's where I got this name, grip. So I kind of developed it into this concept for myself that relates to the symmetry of the diminished scale as a way to produce piano voicings, as well as a kind of a codified organizational system for practicing on wind instruments, or any instrument that can produce multiple notes at the same time. So I think it's great. I think it's one of the coolest things I was exposed to down there, and I wanted to share it with you. So real quick, the diminished scale, it goes by many different names, but just for ease of discussion here, I'm just going to refer to it as the diminished scale. And the symmetry in construction is referred to the fact that it's alternating half steps and whole steps, or, since it's symmetrical, alternating whole steps and half steps. But for the purposes of this video, I'm only going to focus on half step, whole step construction as it relates to dominant chords. And I'm going to use C, concert C, as the root of our chord for purposes of this discussion. So this is what the half-whole diminished scale sounds like with C in the root. And it's just going to be basically alternating half steps and whole steps. And then back down the octave. So the specific dominant chord that we're going to be talking about here, it's not fully altered. But it's almost fully altered. Specifically, it's a dominant 13, sharp 11, sharp 9, flat 9. So if you've got C in the root, you get a C13, sharp 11, sharp 9, flat 9. That's not every single note in there, but that's enough to give you the flavor. So here's the grip portion of it, and here's how it relates to the symmetry of the scale. So if you take the symmetrical structure of this, alternating half steps and whole steps, you're immediately limited by the construction of any seventh chord, right? Because a diminished chord, by definition, is stacked minor thirds. So, as interesting as that is, it boxes you in immediately. Now, if you're looking for a four-note voicing, which this grip system, and by the way, it's called grips. This is the way that I understood it from Whit. It's just because it fits your hand really nicely. It's the way that your hand grips the piano voicing on the keyboard. So makes a lot of sense, totally, self-explanatory. So getting back to the voicing, if you have stacked minor thirds, there's nothing else you can do with that, right? You're just locked into the minor thirds. However, here's the cool part. If you introduce another interval, specifically a perfect fourth, into this four-note voicing concept, that's where these grips come from. So if you think of four notes, for instance, I'm going to build this off of concert C. So you've got C, E flat, F sharp, and A. There's a classic fully diminished seventh chord. if I introduce a perfect fourth in between these four notes, there's only three positions that you can put that interval, right? It can either exist at the top of the voicing, in the middle of the voicing, or at the bottom of the voicing. So that's where these three grip names are going to come from. So the first one, and I'm not necessarily going in any specific order. The first one I call Diminished Major 7. And just like the names of the modes of the jazz melodic minor scale, which take like existing church mode names generally, and then just add an alteration that describes what it is, like Phrygian natural 6, for instance, that's kind of what I approached with this. So my first one, I have the perfect fourth on the top, and this is called, well, I call it the Diminished Major 7 grip. So all I do is I start stacking minor thirds. So here's, I'm going to do this in C, but well, actually, let me put this out there first. As a voicing technique, the scale degrees at which we're going to build these voicings as it relates to the dominant chord are 3, 5, flat 7, and flat 9. So maybe I'll switch into those so that they match up with our C 13, sharp 11, sharp 9, flat 9 chord. Okay, so back to the Diminished Major 7. I'll start on the third, and I'll build these voicings from each scale degree with each of the three grip voicings. So, hope that wasn't too confusing. Back to the Diminished Major 7. So I stack, so now I'm going to put C in the bass, but I'm going to start on the third, which is E. So I'm going to stack minor third, E to G. I'm going to stack another minor third, G to B flat. Now here's my perfect fourth, B flat to E flat. Okay, and you can do that construction. It's minor third, perfect fourth. The reason it's named diminished major is because it's a diminished triad, and then as related to E, which I'm building, this is the voicing I'm building off of on the third, that E flat acts as the major 7 with E, so diminished major. So that's what it is. So now I'll build the same grip, same construction, right? Minor third, perfect fourth on each one of those scale degrees. So this is what it sounds like from the third. This is what it sounds like from the fifth. Here's what it sounds like from the 7, flat 7. And here's what it sounds like from the flat 9. Pretty cool, right? Like, it's instant altered dominant harmony. Okay, so that's the first one, diminished major 7. Second one, I call sus augmented major. I'm still going to use C as the bass, so these are going to be C13 dominant chords with the same alterations. Except this time I'm going to put the perfect fourth on the bottom. So the construction will be perfect fourth, minor third, minor third. So C in the bass, I'll start on the third again so we keep consistent. So perfect fourth we'll start with, so E to A, and then minor third, minor third. So here's that voicing sound off of the third. Now, by the way, you'll notice some of these voicings, some of the grips sound better from different scale degrees, and some of them lend themselves better to specific scale degrees as well. So this one, that doesn't necessarily fit my ear as well, but let's try it on some different scale degrees. And by the way, the sus augmented major thing, that's exactly the same concept. So if you start off, since I'm building it on the third with C in the bass, you've got E and A, that's the perfect fourth. So that's the suspended part, right? Where you take the major third and you raise it up a half step to the 4. That's where the sus comes in. Augmented is the the C acts as a half step above the 5, right? Which is one of the definitions of an augmented triad. And then the major, same thing. Major 7 above, in this case E, that there's the sus augmented major. So that's what it sounds like off the 3rd. Here's what it sounds like off the 5. Here's what it sounds like off the flat 7. And here's what it sounds like off of the flat 9. That sounds pretty good. Okay, so that's 2 out of the 3 grip names. We started with diminished major 7, went to sus augmented major, and our 3rd one, minor augmented major. And if you can guess by now that we've had the perfect 4th both on the top and the bottom, so this one, the perfect 4th, will be in the middle. So it'll be minor 3rd, perfect 4th, minor 3rd. So again, C in the bass. Let's build it from the 3rd at first, which is E. So you've got minor 3rd, perfect 4th, minor 3rd. Same kind of thing. If you're thinking it based on the bottom of the voicing, E to G, there's your minor. Your perfect 4th ends up with C in there, which is augmented as related to E. And there's that E flat again. There's that major 7 as it relates to E as is the bottom of my voicing. So that's minor augmented major. So here we go again. C in the bass, building these voicings first off the 3. So we've got minor augmented major off the 3rd. Here it is off of the 5th. Here it is off the flat 7. And here it is off of the flat 9. And again, this is all covered in detail in the PDF that I put a link to in the beginning of the video. So if this is not clicking for you immediately, don't worry. It's a lot to get your head around if you haven't explored this particular concept before. One other note that I'd like to share is that in addition to the really great possibility of, vertical voicings, this is also immediately translatable to horizontal practice patterns. And I'll put an example up here right now of what I mean. So if you play trumpet or saxophone or trombone or any instrument that can't generally produce 2 notes at the same time, you can take. So let's say you're working on. I like the minor augmented major grip. I like the sound of that one. That's where the perfect 4th is in the middle. So that's a great voicing, but it's also a great shape, and you can sequence this in any number of ways. Right? So here, that's the power of symmetry as it relates to the diminished scale. Even though we've taken that structure of a regular diminished 7th chord, and we've altered it enough so the symmetrical becomes asymmetrical, it's still based on the underlying symmetry of the diminished scale. So it's almost like you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the structure and the stability of symmetry, and you're getting the variety of asymmetry. So this is a really great way to get into altered dominant vocabulary. And you'll notice if you go through the packet, each one of these 3 grip shapes, right, the diminished major 7, the sus augmented major, and the minor augmented major, generates specific alterations depending on where you voice these, whether it's from 3, 5, flat 7, or flat 9. So each one of these grips is not going to give you every single alteration every time. So if I did that, right, that's a two-handed voicing on C that it takes care of every single alteration in the 13 chords. So E, B flat is your flat 7, C sharp is your flat 9. Oh, almost every single one. Here's your sharp 11, F sharp, there's your A. I could probably add the sharp 9 on top. There we go. That's kind of cool. Wait, there's the sharp 11 in there. I'm almost using all of my fingers. Okay, so yeah, that sounds good. So it's not like these grips are going to give you every single one of those alterations every time, but they don't need to, right? You can mix and match. You can combine two grips. You can voice these with one with your left hand if you're doing like a double-handed voicing, starting on the 3 and the other one starting on the 5. It's really great once you get into it and get more comfortable with it. The flexibility is really fantastic. All right, as always, if this is too much, please watch the video again. If you'd like some further explanation and you've paired it up with the two handouts, the grips article, and then also the practice patterns that are in the Dropbox link, description in the vid. I mean, the link is in the description of this video. Shoot me an email, let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to get a little bit more, in the weeds with you if you think that would help. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this one. This is one of my favorite jazz pedagogy theory concepts, and I think it never stops giving. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Okay, hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one. All right.